At 0830 on April 16, 1945, Commander Frederick Julian Becton stood on the bridge of USS Laffey, 30 miles north of Okinawa, at Radar Picket Station Number 1, watching his radar operator track 50 contacts moving south at 200 knots. 36 years old, 2 ships lost. Zero intention of losing a third. The Japanese had launched the largest kamikaze wave of the Okinawa campaign, and Laffey was the northernmost picket ship, alone except for 2 small landing craft. Becton had seen more men die than most captains twice his age. November 13, 1942. From the bridge of USS Nicholas, he'd watched the first USS Laffey burn and sink off Guadalcanal. 59 men went down with her. Then April 7, 1943. His own command, USS Aaron Ward, took 3 bomb hits and 2 near misses. 20 killed, 59 wounded, 7 missing. She sank 600 yards from the beach. Becton spent 7 hours trying to save her. Failed. When the Navy gave him the second Laffey in February 1944, he made a decision. This ship would not sink. Not on his watch. He drilled his crew until they hated him. General quarters at 0300. Damage control exercises until men collapsed. Gun crews practiced until they could load and fire blindfolded. Young sailors complained. Petty officers grumbled. Becton didn't care. He'd pulled dying men from burning compartments. He'd watched destroyers break in half. He knew what happened to ships with unprepared crews. June 6, 1944. Normandy. Laffey escorted landing craft to Utah Beach, then screened battleships bombarding German positions. German coastal batteries at Cherbourg targeted her on June 25th. She laid smoke, took fire, survived. Not a single man lost. Then the Pacific. Leyte Gulf, Philippines, December 7, 1944. Becton watched a kamikaze deliberately dive into a transport 500 yards away. The explosion killed everyone topside. Another kamikaze hit a destroyer. She had to be scuttled. 2 more destroyers took damage. December 10th, 5 more ships hit. Laffey assisted destroyer Hughes with damage control. Burned men screaming. Flesh melted to bone. Becton's crew saw what kamikazes did. January 6, 1945. Lingayen Gulf. 11 ships mauled by suicide pilots in a single day. Laffey maneuvered through burning oil slicks and floating debris, avoided every attack. But Becton knew the law of averages. Keep rolling dice, you eventually lose. Now Okinawa. April 14th. Laffey arrived at Picket Station Number 1, the most dangerous position in the entire operation, 30 miles from the island, 60 miles from the fleet. First warning for incoming raids. First target. Destroyer Cassin Young had been hit here 3 days earlier. 1 dead, 59 wounded. Laffey took her fighter direction team, 300 rounds of 5-inch ammunition, and her spot on the picket line. April 15th passed quietly. Too quietly. If you want to see how Becton's training turned out, please hit that like button. It helps us share more forgotten stories. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Becton. Now April 16th, 0830. Radar scope filled with contacts. Laffey's fighter direction team called for combat air patrol. 4 Wildcats and 12 Corsairs scrambled from carrier Shamrock Bay, but they were 8 minutes out. The kamikazes were 3 minutes out. Becton ordered general quarters. 336 men ran to battle stations. Gunners loaded 5-inch guns. Damage control teams broke out fire hoses. Below decks, men dogged hatches and prepared for flooding. The first enemy aircraft appeared at 0842, an Aichi D-3A Val dive bomber, alone, circling at 8,000 feet. Reconnaissance. When Laffey's guns opened fire, it jettisoned its bomb and fled north. Becton knew what that meant. The pilot had radioed Laffey's position. Now every kamikaze in the formation knew exactly where to find the isolated destroyer. At 0845, 4 Vals broke formation and dove. 2 Vals came from the starboard bow, 1 from port stern, 1 from starboard stern, all diving simultaneously. Becton had trained for this. He shouted orders through the voice tube to the pilot house below. Hard left rudder. Keep broadside to the attackers. Maximum guns on target. Gun boss Lieutenant Paul Smith sat in the director basket atop the bridge. He had permission to fire when ready. Mount 51 and Mount 52, the forward 5-inch guns, opened up under director control. Shells bracketed the first valve at 4,000 yards, 3,000 yards, 2,000 yards. Direct hit. The valve disintegrated at 1,500 yards. Burning pieces hit the water 200 yards off the bow. The second valve kept coming from starboard. 40mm guns joined the barrage, 20mm guns at closer range. The valve's engine started smoking at 1,000 yards, 500 yards. It nosed over and hit the water 50 yards from the hull. Explosion sent a geyser 40 feet high. The port stern valve came in low, almost skimming the waves. Mount 53, the aft 5-inch gun, tracked it. Fire Controlman Lawrence Delusky commanded the mount. 20 years old, Pennsylvania farm kid. 6 months at sea. He'd practiced this shot 500 times in drills. Never missed. Didn't miss now. The valve shed pieces under concentrated fire. Its fixed landing gear caught the water. The plane cartwheeled and exploded 300 yards astern. The fourth valve attacked from starboard stern. Every gun on that side opened fire. Tracers converged. The valve's wings separated. Pilot tried to correct. Too late. Plane slammed into the ocean 100 yards out. 4 attacks, 4 kills. Elapsed time, 90 seconds. Becton allowed himself 1 breath. Then, lookout spotted number 5, a Yokosuka D4Y Judy making a strafing run on the port beam. Faster than the valve, harder to hit. The Judy's machine guns raked Laffey's deck. Bullets pinged off steel. One gunner took rounds through his flak jacket, kept firing. The Judy pilot pulled up at 200 yards. 40mm mount on the port side tracked him perfectly. Burst caught the engine. Judy rolled inverted and crashed 500 yards out. 8 minutes had passed since the first contact. 5 enemy aircraft destroyed. 0 damage to Laffey. Becton's drill sergeant approach was working, but 50 more contacts remained on the radar scope. At 0853, the 6th and 7th attackers came together. Another valve to port, another Judy to starboard, coordinated attack. Becton ordered 30 degrees starboard rudder, split the targeting. Portside guns engaged the valve. Starboard guns took the Judy. The valve pilot was good. He came in at a shallow angle, using the morning sun. Gun crews squinted through the glare, fired anyway. Tracers walked up toward the valve, hit the tail, hit the wing, hit the cockpit. The valve kept coming. On fire now. Pilot dead or dying, but gravity and momentum carried the aircraft forward. It dropped a bomb at 300 yards. The bomb missed. Exploded 10 yards off the port beam. Shrapnel peppered the hull. No serious damage. The burning valve hit the water and skipped like a stone before sinking. Starboard side was different. The Judy came fast and low. 20mm gunner Bob Robertson, 19 years old from Michigan, tracked it perfectly. Gun Captain Fred Burgess stood beside him calling corrections. The Judy's pilot dropped his bomb early. Maybe wounded. Maybe panicking. The bomb fell alongside the starboard beam. Exploded on impact with water. The blast was massive. Shrapnel tore through the thin hull plating. Robertson took fragments in the face and chest. Burgess shoved Robertson down as a larger piece of shrapnel nearly severed Burgess's left leg below the knee. Both men went down. Medical corpsmen rushed over. Tourniquets, morphine, drag them below, replace them, keep firing. Laffey's portside 40mm crew splashed the Judy before it could do more damage. But now Laffey had taken her first casualties. 2 wounded, first blood drawn, and the Japanese were just getting started. Number 8 was already diving. Another valve from astern, strafing as it approached. Mount 53 engaged. Delusky's crew fired, hit the valve's propeller, hit the engine cowling, but the valve didn't slow. 20mm guns from the fantail opened up. Guns 23, 24, 25, all 3 mounts firing. The valve flew through the barrage, somehow, crashed through Mount 25, destroyed all 3 20mm guns, killed 6 gunners instantly, smashed into the starboard corner of Mount 53. Flaming gasoline covered the fantail. The valve's bomb exploded. Major fire erupted. Becton saw flames reaching 60 feet high from his bridge position. He ordered the aft 5-inch magazine flooded immediately. Water rushed in, prevented a catastrophic explosion. But Mount 53 was finished. Delusky had been directing fire from the side hatch because the top hatch was jammed. The explosion blew him clear of the turret, landed on deck 20 feet away, somehow unharmed, got up, grabbed a fire extinguisher, started fighting the flames. 10 minutes into the battle, 8 enemy aircraft destroyed, 6 men dead, 2 wounded, 1 5-inch mount destroyed, 3 20mm mounts gone, fires burning aft. 4 Wildcats from Combat Air Patrol arrived overhead, started engaging kamikazes before they could dive on Laffey, shot down 2 Vals at altitude, but 12 more kamikazes were already committed to their attack runs. At 08:57, Number 9 dove from astern. The 9th Val came out of the sun from directly astern, dropped a bomb 2 feet inboard of the deck edge near Mount 53. The bomb punched through the thin deck plating and exploded inside, killed 6 more men. Then the Val itself crashed into what remained of Mount 53, finished the gun off completely. The entire aft section of Laffey was now a burning wreck. Damage control teams fought the fires with everything available: hoses, extinguishers, buckets. The heat was intense. Paint blistered on bulkheads 50 feet away. Ammunition stored nearby started cooking off, small explosions every few seconds. Men worked through it. No choice. Let the fire reach the magazine and the whole ship goes up. Becton couldn't spare attention for the aft fires. Number 10 was already inbound. Another Val from the starboard bow. Strafing. Despite fire from 5-inch guns, 40mm guns, and 20mm guns, the pilot dropped his bomb. It hit near Mount 53 again, added to the inferno. The Val barely cleared Laffey's mast before a Corsair from Combat Air Patrol shot it down. It crashed 200 yards ahead, but the damage was done. Another bomb, more fires, more casualties. 13 minutes since the first attack. 10 enemy aircraft destroyed, 12 men dead, at least 20 wounded. Half the aft armament gone. Fires out of control. At 0900 exactly, 3 kamikazes attacked simultaneously from different directions, 11th, 12th, and 13th. This was the moment Becton had dreaded. More targets than guns could handle. More attacks than crews could track. Saturation. The 11th came from port stern. Val. Low and fast. Every port gun opened fire. Hit it repeatedly. But it kept coming. Crashed into the port side aft near the waterline. Exploded. Blew a hole 8 feet across in the hull. Water rushed in. Laffey immediately took a list to port. Damage control parties scrambled to shore up bulkheads and pump out flooding compartments. The 12th attacked from starboard bow. Judy. Diving steep. Forward 5-inch guns tracked it. Mount 51 fired. Missed. Mount 52 fired. Missed. 40mm guns engaged at 1,000 yards. Walking fire up toward the diving aircraft. Hit the wing. Hit the fuselage. The Judy started trailing smoke but didn't deviate. Crashed into the starboard side amidships, penetrated the hull above the waterline, exploded inside, killed 8 men in the crew's berthing compartment, started fires on the main deck, blew out electrical systems. Radar went dead. Fire control systems failed. Guns reverted to local control only. The 13th came from dead ahead. Another Val. Mount 51 and Mount 52 both engaged. Full manual control now. Gunners tracked by eye. No director, no radar. Just look through the sight and lead the target. Both guns fired. Shells converged. The Val exploded in midair at 600 yards. Burning debris rained down on the forward deck. Small fires started. Men beat them out with jackets. Becton assessed the damage. List to port, maybe 5 degrees. Fires amidships and aft. Radar inoperative. Main battery still functional, but limited. Half the anti-aircraft guns destroyed or unmanned. Casualties mounting. Water coming in. But the ship was still afloat. Still fighting. And the kamikazes kept coming. Number 14 appeared at 0903. Val from the port quarter. Came in low, strafing. Killed 2 more gunners. Crashed into the already damaged port side aft. Exploded near the previous kamikaze hit. Widened the hole in the hull. More flooding. List increased to 7 degrees. Chief engineer reported water in 2 compartments. Pumps working but barely keeping up. 15 minutes into the attack. 13 enemy aircraft destroyed. 20 men dead. 30 wounded. Ship taking water. Major fires burning. And still, no end in sight. Number 15 dove at 0905. Judy from starboard, fast, maybe 300 knots. Forward guns tracked, fired, missed. 40mm guns engaged, hit the tail. Judy wobbled, but kept coming. 20mm guns fired point blank. Bullets walked up the fuselage, hit the engine, hit the cockpit. The Judy rolled right and missed Laffey by 20 feet, crashed into the ocean alongside, close enough that the explosion sent water over the deck. Men were drenched. Kept fighting. At 0907, Laffey's rudder jammed hard to port. Damage from the underwater explosions. Ship started turning in circles. Tight circles. 26-degree permanent turn. Couldn't steer straight. Becton tried everything. Engines ahead full. Engines astern. Nothing worked. Laffey was locked in a constant left turn. And number 16 was diving. This valve came from starboard, while Laffey circled helplessly. Gun crews tracked as best they could, while the ship spun beneath them. Mount 52 fired, hit the valve's wing, tore half of it off. The plane cartwheeled, smashed into the ocean 50 yards out. But its bomb had already separated, fell alongside the hull, detonated underwater. Hull plates buckled. Another leak opened. List increased to 9 degrees. 18 minutes. 15 enemy aircraft destroyed. 23 dead, 35 wounded. Rudder jammed, taking water, circling uncontrollably. 6 more kamikazes still inbound. Becton stood on the bridge, blood running down his face from shrapnel. Uniform torn. Bridge windows shattered. Voice hoarse from shouting orders. Assistant Communications Officer Lieutenant Frank Manson appeared beside him. Young officer, fresh from Annapolis. Good kid. Manson looked at the fires, the flooding, the bodies, the circling ship. He turned to Becton, asked if they'd have to abandon ship. Becton's answer was immediate. No. He would never abandon ship as long as a single gun could fire. Manson nodded and returned to his station. Nearby lookout softly said he'd keep firing if he could find one man to fire the gun with. Becton didn't hear him, already focused on the next threat. Number 17 attacked at 0910, valve from astern. Despite the constant circling, aft guns engaged. What remained of the fantail crews fired everything they had. The valve took hits, kept coming. Dropped its bomb, missed. Crashed into the already devastated aft section. Added more fire to the inferno. The heat was so intense that ready ammunition for the remaining guns started detonating. Pop, 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 like fireworks. Men grabbed the hot shells with bare hands, threw them overboard. Burns didn't matter. Magazine explosion did. Combat Air Patrol overhead was doing everything possible. Wildcats and Corsairs engaged kamikazes at altitude, shot down 3 before they could dive, but the Japanese kept sending more. The mathematics were brutal. 16 picket stations around Okinawa, 50 kamikazes in this raid. Laffey was alone at the northernmost station. Every pilot saw the smoke. Every pilot knew where the damaged ship was. They all turned toward her. At 0913, number 18 dove. Judy from port bow. Mount 51 tracked it. Fired. Shell passed so close the Judy shuddered, but didn't hit. 40mm guns engaged. Walking tracers up. Hit the wing root. The Judy's wing folded. Pilot tried to compensate. Couldn't. Plane spun inverted. Crashed into the water 100 yards out. The blast was close enough to knock men down on deck. 21 minutes into the battle. 17 enemy aircraft destroyed. But the cost was staggering. 26 dead. 40 wounded. Fires burning on 3 levels. Flooding in 4 compartments. List now at 11 degrees. Rudder still jammed. Ship circling like a wounded animal. And 5 more kamikazes inbound. Becton's training was the only thing keeping the crew functional. Men who drilled until they collapsed now moved on instinct. Gun crews whose members were dead pulled replacements from damage control parties. Loaders who'd never fired a gun before stepped up. Gunners with shrapnel wounds kept shooting. Nobody quit. Nobody panicked. They'd practice this. Not exactly this. Nobody could practice for this, but close enough. Number 19 came at 0915. Valve from starboard quarter. Strafing run first. Kill 3 more men on the exposed deck. Then the dive. Mount 52 engaged. Direct hit at 800 yards. The valve exploded in midair. Debris scattered across the ocean. 1 threat eliminated. 4 remaining. Damage control teams below decks were performing miracles. Chief engineer and his men shoring up bulkheads with wooden beams, welding steel plates over holes, pumping water faster than it came in. Barely. The ship was settling by the stern, down 3 feet from normal waterline, taking more water with every underwater explosion. But still afloat, still fighting. Medical spaces were overwhelmed. Ship's doctor and 2 pharmacists' mates treating casualties faster than they arrived. Wardroom converted to emergency surgery. Mess deck converted to triage. Bunks filled with wounded. Deck covered with men waiting for treatment. Morphine running low. Bandages running out. Doctor kept working. Amputated Fred Burgess's shattered leg with a knife and saw. No anesthetic left. Burgess bit down on leather. Survived. At 09:18, number 20 attacked. Judy from dead ahead. Both forward mounts fired simultaneously. Mount 51 shell hit the propeller. Mount 52 shell hit the engine. The Judy disintegrated. Forward crews cheered. First cheer of the entire battle. 20 enemy aircraft destroyed. 3 more to go. But the last 3 were the worst. Number 21 came at 09:20, valve from port beam, high angle dive, almost vertical. Impossible shot for the guns to track that steep. Crews tried anyway, fired straight up. Missed. The valve came down like a meteor. Pilot aimed for the bridge, trying to kill the command staff, end the resistance. Becton saw it coming. Couldn't do anything. Ship still circling uncontrollably. No way to maneuver, no way to dodge. The valve hit 20 feet forward of the bridge, crashed through the deck, exploded in the forward crew compartment, killed 11 men, blew out the bulkhead between compartments, started massive fires. Smoke poured up through the deck. Bridge crew couldn't see forward anymore, blind. And the ship was settling faster now. Stern almost underwater, bow rising. List at 13 degrees. Men struggling to stand on slanted decks. Equipment sliding, bodies sliding. Still the crew fought, still the guns fired, because Becton said they would. And Becton hadn't abandoned ship, so neither would they. 25 minutes since the first attack. 21 enemy aircraft destroyed. 37 men dead, 53 wounded. Ship sinking. Fires everywhere. Blind. Circling. 1 gun still operational forward. Maybe 2 aft if the crews survived. At 09:23, number 22 appeared on the horizon. The 22nd kamikaze was another Val, coming from starboard bow, high and fast. The pilot had watched 21 aircraft fail, watched them get shot down or miss or hit non-vital areas. He wasn't making the same mistakes. Professional approach, textbook dive angle, aimed directly at the bridge. Kill the captain, kill the command, kill the ship. Mount 51 tracked, fired, missed. Fired again, missed again. Crew was exhausted. 26 minutes of continuous combat. Ears bleeding from gun blasts, arms shaking from loading shells, eyes watering from smoke. They fired a 3rd time. Shell passed under the valve's fuselage. Close. Not close enough. 40mm guns engaged at 1,000 yards. Tracers converged. Hit the valve's tail. Small pieces flew off. Didn't slow it down. 800 yards. 20mm guns joined. Hundreds of rounds per minute. Walking fire up toward the cockpit. Hit the engine cowling. Hit the windscreen. 600 yards. The valve was trailing smoke now. Still coming. 400 yards. Then a Corsair from Combat Air Patrol dove from above. Pilot had been circling, waiting for an opening. Saw the valve committed to its dive. No escape, no evasion. Perfect target. The Corsair's 6 50 caliber machine guns opened up. 3,600 rounds per minute. The valve came apart in midair at 300 yards. Wings separated, fuselage tumbled. Bomb fell free and exploded in the water. Debris scattered. Some hit Laffey's deck. Started small fires. Crews stomped them out. 22 enemy aircraft destroyed. The last one. The raid was over. Time was 09:25. 80 minutes since the first contact. Longest 80 minutes in naval history. Becton surveyed his ship. Laffey was dying. Stern underwater. Bow rising at 15 degrees. List to port at 14 degrees. Men walking on tilted decks holding railings to keep from sliding off. Fires burning on 4 levels. Smoke so thick the bridge crew wore wet rags over their faces. Rudder jammed. Engines still running, but barely. Electrical systems down. Communications down. Radar destroyed. Half the armament gone. Hull breached in 6 places, taking water faster than pumps could handle. 32 men confirmed dead. 71 wounded. Some critical. Some walking. All bleeding. Medical spaces overwhelmed. Doctor working continuously for 90 minutes. Hands covered in blood. Face gray with exhaustion. Still operating. Still trying to save lives. But the kamikazes were gone. The sky was clear. Combat air patrol circled overhead, protecting the wounded destroyer, making sure no more attackers got through. At 09:30, minesweeper McComb appeared on the horizon, rushed to assist. Came alongside at 09:45. Passed over firefighting equipment, extra hoses, extra pumps, fresh damage control teams. McComb's crew joined the fight against the fires. Landing craft LCS-51 and LCS-116, which had been fighting alongside Laffey the entire battle, moved closer. They'd shot down 6 kamikazes between them. Now they provided additional pumps and medical supplies, transferred wounded to their sick bays, gave Laffey's overworked doctor some relief. Fleet tug Picana arrived at 1000 hours, took Laffey under tow, slowly pulled the destroyer away from the picket station, away from the combat zone, towards safety. Progress was agonizing. 3 knots maximum. Laffey so low in the water that waves washed over the stern. Men bailing with buckets. Every hand not fighting fires was pumping water. By 1100 hours, damage control teams had contained the worst fires. Not extinguished, contained. Still burning but not spreading. Still dangerous but not immediately catastrophic. The flooding was stabilized. Not stopped, stabilized. Water still coming in but pumps keeping pace. Ship still settling but slowly. Not sinking. Not yet. Becton refused to leave the bridge. Stood there for 7 hours straight. Blood dried on his face. Uniform soaked with seawater and sweat. Voice gone from shouting orders. Still commanding. Still leading. Men looked up at him and found strength. If the captain wasn't quitting, neither were they. By 1400 hours, Picana had towed Laffey 15 miles south, further from the combat zone, closer to the fleet. Air cover overhead was thick now. Wildcats, Corsairs, Hellcats, nothing would get through to finish Laffey off. Medical count was updated. 32 confirmed dead, 7 missing, presumed dead in flooded compartments. 71 wounded, 23 critical, 48 stable. Every man had fought. Every man had bled. Engineering assessment came in. 6 kamikaze impacts, 4 bomb hits, multiple near misses. Hull breached in 8 locations, not 6. 3 compartments completely flooded. 2 more partially flooded. Main deck structurally compromised. Superstructure damaged. Mast bent. Rudder mechanism destroyed. 1 shaft damaged. 50% of armament destroyed or inoperable. By any reasonable standard, Laffey should have sunk. But she hadn't. April 17th. Dawn. Picana anchored Laffey off Okinawa. Temporary repairs began. Welders sealed the worst hull breaches. Carpenters shored up weakened bulkheads. Pumps ran continuously. Fires finally extinguished after 18 hours. The ship still listed, still sat low, but she was stable. April 27th. Laffey, under her own power, reached Saipan. Barely. Limping. 1 engine. Emergency steering. But moving. May 24th. Arrived Tacoma, Washington. Entered dry dock at Todd Shipyards. Repair estimate, 4 months. Cost estimate, extensive. But worth it. The ship had earned something during those 80 minutes off Okinawa. A nickname. The ship that would not die. Captain Frederick Moosbrugger of Task Force 51.5 sent a message to Becton on April 22nd. Said that as long as Laffey remains somewhere in the Pacific, The Navy would always know where to find punch in a pinch. Said they would always remember that Laffey laughs last. The nickname stuck. Newspapers picked it up, radio broadcasts repeated it. The ship that survived 22 kamikaze attacks, the ship that took 10 direct hits, 4 bombs, 6 aircraft crashes, the ship that kept fighting when every regulation said she should sink. Naval analysts studied what happened, tried to understand how Laffey survived when so many others didn't. Destroyer Mannered Able, hit by 2 kamikazes off Okinawa on April 12th, sank in 4 minutes. Destroyer Bush, hit by 3 kamikazes on April 6th, sank in 2 hours. Destroyer Colhoun, hit by 4 kamikazes on April 6th, sank in 30 minutes. All newer ships, all well-trained crews, all lost. But Laffey took 10 hits and lived. The analysts found 3 reasons. First was Becton's training, his obsessive drilling, his middle-of-the-night exercises. Men performed under impossible stress because they practiced under simulated stress. Gun crews reloaded while wounded because they'd reloaded blindfolded in drills. Damage control parties shored bulkheads while the ship burned because they practiced shoring bulkheads in smoke-filled compartments. Training saved lives. Training saved the ship. Second was the jammed rudder, the 26-degree permanent turn. Pure accident. Underwater explosion damaged the steering mechanism, but that constant circling made Laffey a harder target. Kamikazes had to adjust their dives mid-attack, lead the moving target, compensate for the turn. Most misjudged. Hit the water. Hit non-vital areas. Hit where the ship had already been damaged. The rudder failure that should have doomed Laffey actually helped save her. Third was compartmentalization. Allen M. Sumner-class destroyers had better internal subdivision than earlier designs, more watertight compartments, stronger bulkheads, better damage control stations. When one compartment flooded, bulkheads held. When fire spread, fire breaks stopped them. The ship could take massive damage in one section and remain functional in others. Engineering could flood magazines without losing buoyancy. Medical could operate while combat continued above, each system independent, each compartment isolated. But the real reason went deeper than training or design or luck. It was the crew. 336 men who refused to quit. Gunners who kept firing with shrapnel in their chests. Loaders who kept loading with burns on their hands. Engineers who kept pumping with water rising around them. Damage control parties who kept fighting fires while kamikazes crashed overhead. Corpsmen who kept treating wounded while bombs exploded nearby. They refused to abandon ship because Becton refused to abandon ship. And Becton refused because he'd already lost 2 ships. He'd watched Aaron Ward sink. He'd witnessed the first Laffey go down. He knew what it looked like when a destroyer died. Knew what it sounded like. Knew how men screamed. Knew how water rushed in. Knew how fires spread. Knew all of it. And he decided it wouldn't happen again. Not to his ship. Not to his crew. Not on his watch. That decision, made months earlier at Bath Iron Works while Laffey was still being built, saved 304 lives on April 16, 1945. Awards came later. Presidential Unit Citation for the entire ship, highest honor a naval unit can receive. Citation read that Laffey fought valiantly against waves of hostile suicide aircraft plunging toward her from all directions, set up relentless barrages of anti-aircraft fire during extremely heavy and concentrated air attack, suffered severe structural damage, loss of armament, and heavy personnel casualties, yet emerged at close of action still afloat and still an effective fighting unit. Becton received the Navy Cross. Citation read that he skillfully countered fanatical enemy tactics, employed every conceivable maneuver, directed all guns in intense, unrelenting barrage, retained complete control despite overwhelming aerial force, fought fiercely for over 2 hours, blasted 8 enemy aircraft out of the sky himself, while 6 crashed into his ship. Ensign Robert Thompson received the posthumous Navy Cross, killed by the 9th kamikaze while directing damage control parties, kept fighting until the moment of impact. 6 Silver Stars, 18 Bronze Stars, 1 Navy Letter of Commendation. Distributed among the crew. Recognition for extraordinary heroism under fire. Landing Craft LCS-51 Commander Lieutenant Howell Chickering received Navy Cross. His small vessel shot down 6 aircraft while defending Laffey. Stayed in position despite being outgunned and vulnerable. Provided critical fire support. But numbers and medals don't capture what really happened that morning. Don't explain what it felt like to stand on a burning deck while aircraft dove from every direction. Don't convey the sound of 5-inch guns firing continuously for 80 minutes. Don't describe the smell of burning flesh and cordite and seawater. Don't communicate the exhaustion of loading shells until your shoulders dislocated. Don't express the fear of watching friends die. Don't translate courage into words. What happened April 16th off Okinawa was something rarer than heroism. It was collective refusal to accept defeat. 336 individuals making the same decision simultaneously. We will not sink. We will not surrender. We will not stop fighting. The Japanese can hit us 10 times, 20 times. We'll take the hits and keep shooting. Because our captain said we would, and we trust our captain. He lost 2 ships before. He won't lose this one, so neither will we. That kind of unity doesn't happen by accident. Doesn't come from speeches or patriotism or propaganda. Comes from months of brutal training. Comes from a captain who cares more about preparedness than popularity. Comes from officers who lead by example. Comes from petty officers who refuse to accept mediocrity. Comes from sailors who trust their training even when logic says they should panic. Laffey completed repairs in September 1945. War was over by then. Japan surrendered August 15th. No more kamikazes, no more combat. But the Navy wanted Laffey operational again. Wanted the ship that wouldn't die back in service. November 1945. Laffey participated in Operation Crossroads. Atomic bomb tests at Bikini Atoll. Ship survived the blasts. Collected radiation data. Proved she could survive nuclear weapons too. Decontaminated afterward. Placed in Pacific Reserve Fleet. Mothballed. Then Korea. June 1950. North Korea invaded South. United Nations responded. Navy needed destroyers. Laffey recommissioned. Returned to combat. October 1950 through July 1953. Laffey participated in blockade of Wonsan. Longest naval blockade in American history. 861 days. Laffey fired thousands of rounds at shore targets, supported marine operations, intercepted supply vessels, survived mine strikes, survived shore battery fire, survived everything Korea threw at her. Ship that wouldn't die in World War II wouldn't die in Korea either. July 1953. Armistice signed. Laffey decommissioned again. Returned to Reserve Fleet, this time permanently. Becton's career continued upward, promoted to captain January 1951, commanded destroyer divisions, served in Bureau of Naval Personnel, commanded transport ship USS Glynn, served in Office of Chief of Naval Operations. September 1956, took command of battleship USS Iowa. The Iowa, 60,000 tons, 9 16-inch guns, flagship material, a destroyer captain commanding a battleship. Rare honor. 1958. Assigned to Department of the Navy, Director of Enlisted Personnel Division, shaped Navy training policy for thousands of sailors. Applied lessons learned from Laffey. Emphasis on damage control, emphasis on redundancy, emphasis on crew preparation. His experience off Okinawa influenced Navy doctrine for decades. Promoted to Rear Admiral. Retired 1966 after 35 years service. Settled in Wynnewood, Pennsylvania with wife Elizabeth. 2 daughters. Quiet retirement. Wrote memoirs. Attended reunions. Never forgot his crew. Never forgot April 16th. The crew scattered after the war. Most went home. Returned to farms and factories and offices. Became civilians again. But they stayed in touch. Annual reunions, letters, phone calls. The men who fought 80 minutes together remained brothers for life. Lawrence Delusky returned to Pennsylvania, became a machinist, raised a family, never talked much about the war, but kept his Navy Cross in a drawer. Took it out sometimes. Remembered the day Mount 53 took 2 kamikaze hits. Remembered getting blown clear. Remembered grabbing the fire extinguisher. Remembered fighting flames while the world burned. Bob Robertson lost his left eye from shrapnel, received medical discharge, returned to Michigan, became a teacher, taught history, told students about Laffey sometimes, showed them his Purple Heart. explained what kamikazes were, why men fought, why ships mattered. Students listened, learned, remembered. Fred Burgess survived losing his leg, received prosthetic, learned to walk again, became a carpenter, one-legged carpenter, built houses, built furniture, built a life, never complained. Men who watched him shove Robertson down, take the shrapnel meant for the younger sailor, never forgot. Real heroism looks like that, sacrificing yourself so someone else lives. Ship's doctor received commendation for treating 71 wounded under combat conditions. Continued Navy career, became hospital administrator, applied trauma lessons from Laffey to teaching new doctors, emphasis on triage, emphasis on working under pressure, emphasis on making hard decisions fast. Saved countless lives by teaching what he learned that day. 1962, Navy declared Laffey excess, scheduled for scrapping, but veterans protested. The ship that wouldn't die shouldn't die in a scrapyard. Preserved her, made her a memorial, donated to Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum in Charleston, South Carolina. Laffey arrived Patriots Point 1981, joined aircraft carrier Yorktown, became museum ship, open to public. Visitors could walk the decks, see the bridge where Becton commanded, see Mount 53 where Delusky fought, see the damage, touch history. 1986, declared National Historic Landmark. Only remaining American-owned Sumner-class destroyer, preserved for her survival of the kamikaze attack. Educational value, historical significance. But Laffey started deteriorating. Saltwater, age, neglect. By 2008, over 100 leaks in the hull. Ship was sinking at her mooring. Officials feared she'd go down. Needed $9 million for repairs. South Carolina provided a loan. Laffey towed to dry dock August 2009. Hull repaired. Rust removed. New plating installed. Fresh paint. Returned to Patriots Point April 2010. 65 years to the day after the kamikaze attack. Ship that wouldn't die off Okinawa wouldn't die at the dock either. Today, USS Laffey sits at Patriots Point. Open daily. Visitors walk the decks where 336 men fought for their lives. Stand on the bridge where Becton commanded. Touch the guns that fired for 80 minutes straight. See the damage that should have sunk her. The ship tells the story better than words. Mount 53 still shows kamikaze impact marks. Deck plating still bears bomb damage. Hull still has patches welded over holes. Bridge windows still cracked from explosions. Everything preserved, everything authentic. Walk through, and you understand what happened. Not just intellectually, viscerally. Educational programs bring school groups. Students learn about World War II, learn about kamikazes, learn about naval combat. But more importantly, they learn about courage, about training, about refusing to quit when quitting makes sense, about trusting your team, about leadership under fire. Lessons that apply beyond military history. Lessons for life. Veterans visit regularly. World War II veterans fewer each year. Korea veterans still coming. Their children, their grandchildren, paying respects. Remembering. Making sure the story continues. Making sure April 16th, 1945 doesn't fade into footnotes. Becton died December 25th, 1995, Christmas Day, age 87. Buried Arlington National Cemetery with full honors. Wife Elizabeth survived him. 2 daughters, multiple grandchildren. All proud of what their father and grandfather accomplished. Not just surviving Okinawa, but training men so well they could survive Okinawa. His legacy isn't the medals, isn't the promotions, isn't even saving Laffey. His legacy is proving that preparation matters, that training isn't punishment, that drilling until men hate you might save their lives later, that leadership means caring more about readiness than popularity. Every naval officer studies Becton's command style. Every damage control school teaches Laffey's survival. Every leadership course references April 16th, because the lessons are timeless. Laffey earned 5 Battle Stars World War II, 2 Battle Stars Korea, Presidential Unit Citation, numerous other decorations. But the real achievement isn't the awards. It's the 304 men who survived, who went home, who raised families, who lived full lives because their captain prepared them, and their ship refused to sink. The Japanese expected Laffey to go down after the first few hits. Standard destroyer survival rate against massed kamikaze attacks was poor. Most ships hit by more than 3 kamikazes sank. Laffey took 10 direct hits. Should have sunk 5 times over. Didn't. Kept fighting. Kept floating. Kept firing. The Japanese kept attacking because they couldn't believe the ship was still operational. Thought each new attack would finish her. Never did. That's what shocked Japan. Not that Americans could build ships, not that Americans could train crews, but that Americans could take that much punishment and keep fighting, could lose half their weapons and keep shooting, could take massive casualties and maintain discipline, could face certain death and refuse to quit. That level of determination surprised the Japanese military command, made them recalculate what defeating America would require, made them understand the war was lost. One destroyer, 80 minutes, changed Japanese strategic assessment. Because if one ship could survive 22 kamikazes, how many could the entire fleet survive? If one crew could fight that hard, what would the invasion of Japan cost? The mathematics became impossible. The casualties became unacceptable. The war became unwinnable. Laffey didn't win World War II, but she demonstrated why America would win. Not through superior technology, not through industrial capacity, through human determination. Through training, through leadership, through men who refused to accept defeat even when defeat seemed inevitable. April 16th, 1945, 30 miles north of Okinawa. 80 minutes that defined naval combat. 80 minutes that proved what training and leadership could accomplish. 80 minutes that saved 304 lives. 80 minutes that earned a nickname, the ship that would not die. And 79 years later, she still hasn't. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor, hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every single day. Stories about sailors and destroyer crews who saved lives through training, courage, and refusal to quit. Real people, real heroism. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you watching from the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia? Our community stretches across the entire world. You're not just a viewer, you're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family served. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure Commander Becton and his crew don't disappear into silence. These men deserve to be remembered, and you're helping make that happen.